I love coming to Mexico. I love coming to Mexico City. I am a big tequila drinker. My last visit to Mexico with Hiromi, we went to Guadalajara, and I went out to Herradura and had the tour and everything and tried all the, all the different tequilas. But I think what I love, I mean, especially with the audience, is they're just beautiful audiences. We would play typically 2 nights at Lunaria, and the moment you come out on stage, we usually have flown in from somewhere in the States. So it started very early in the morning. We're tired, and then I have a new kit I have to prepare. It's a lot of work, And we only get to do a very short sound check and then have something quick to eat, and then we're on stage. As soon as we hit the stage, just the energy and the friendliness and welcomingness, if that is such a word, is so immediately apparent. It's just wonderful. So we always have a great gig here. I've always loved my time coming to Mexico. I also love the food. Great restaurants here, great chefs, great food, it's lovely, wonderful. So I think a lot of people are surprised that I'm, not only a drummer and a musician, that I'm so involved in sound and recording, and some know me as an engineer and a producer. When I was a very young boy, my mother was a very keen amateur recordist. She had a ferrograph tape machine, and she taught me when I was like 3 or 4 years old how to loop the tape, how to press play, how not to hit record, to erase everything, how not to twist the tape to play the back side of it. And I loved it. I grew up listening to music. And then she invested in a more professional system with 2 Revox G36 tape machines with the professional spools. And I was dragged into studios when I was 6 years old. I was like, microphone, red light, the clock. And in those days, everybody wore ties and suits at the BBC. It was very, I just loved sound. And it was very much part of my playing was the sound. Not so much the technique of playing, it was the sound. I used to play the records. I would listen to the record and listen, how do the drums sound? I'll give you an idea. The Kinks, You Really Got Me. It was a very dead drum sound. So I went, I'd walk to my mum's cleaning cupboard, grab some towels, some scotch tape, or we had sellotape in England. Stuck them on the drums, make it sound like they did on the record. And only then I would play the song, right? And then maybe I'd want to play to a Count Basie record. Totally different sound. So I'd take the cloths off and tune everything up. Do you see what I mean? I was so into sound. And I used to, how do they get this sound? And I was already aware of the concept of instrument, microphone, cable. I didn't know it was called a mic pre. We didn't used to call them mic pre's in those days. They were called a recording console, because we didn't have separate mic pre's. They weren't invented yet. And there was this thing with all these dials and big faders, only maybe 10 or 12 faders, 1 speaker, mono. And I was like, when I was allowed into the control room, I was like, and I used to love the way I heard the band in the room, no headphones in those days. And then I go into the control room and hear how the engineer had recorded them. I went, how do they do that? Because it sounds different. Well, reverb. In those days we had chambers, literally concrete rooms in the basement of the studio with a speaker in, and you send it from the console down to that room, and there's a microphone, and you return, and you add that in. So that was how I got involved in sound. And I started engineering for real in 1983. That was when I did my first professional engineering job for Mike Oldfield. And to this day, I love it, yeah. The masterclass I did at Expo Soundcheck today, just finished actually, it was, obviously we had limited time because there's a lot of stuff going on. Normally I would have a longer masterclass clinic. So I had to try to be very concise. The other issue which can make the masterclass twice as long is, of course, my Spanish is very limited, poquito. And every question has to be translated to me in English. I talk in English, translated to Spanish. That also means the way I answer has to be very clear, and I have to take out I'm kind of self-editing all the time. So it's quite a challenge. And the other thing, even though it's a masterclass or a clinic, whatever you want to call it, or a workshop, I think a lot of people, when they're giving them, don't realize it is still a performance. You're still entertaining the audience. And I've been to clinics in the past where even I get bored, because the person doing it is not really thinking about it like that. So, as well as being informative, there's also got to be a bit of humility. You know, there's got to be a little sense of humor in there. You've got to try to appeal to everybody. So you kind of have to be a bit of a little bit of a politician, a little bit of a lead singer, you know, as well as being a drummer and an instructor, you know. So it is a challenge, and obviously with the translating going on, to keep the thing moving, to keep it flowing, is tricky. But I feel that it went very well. The audience were great, very receptive, and I think a lot of them actually did understand bits of English. So if I said something that was meant to be humorous, thankfully they laughed. It's always good to get a laugh. Yeah. It was one of those weird scenarios where I'd grown up in a musical household and I'd grown up with his music. So even though at the age of 12, I was still very much a starter, very much a beginner, but the one thing I could do was play his style of music the way that he wanted it played. The problem was, in 1969, playing 1930s swing, dance, traditional jazz music, most drummers didn't want to play that. They wanted to play like Tony Williams and Elvin Jones. And my dad hated it. And one too many gigs with a drummer that couldn't play his music, he said, that's it. And he was angry. And my mom said, you have the drummer right in this house. And he said, oh, don't be ridiculous. He's 12 years old. How can I take him out on the road with a band that the youngest guy is 30, going up to 60? And she said, he's perfectly capable of doing it. Give him a chance. And that was it. And when he said, right, you are now in the band. I'm like, yikes, wow, you know? But what a wonderful apprenticeship. A wonderful apprenticeship. And that hence it's, 50 years.